Welcome to the Governor's Crime Commission Grant Reimbursements Training. At the completion of this module, you'll understand what a grant reimbursement is. You will also understand the cost principles that govern reimbursement requests. Additionally, you'll be able to explain the documentation required for reimbursement. And lastly, this training will equip you to submit a grant reimbursement request via the Grants Enterprise Management System, GEMS. Grants administered through the Governor's Crime Commission provide funding to grant subrecipients after approved project expenses have been incurred. The process of requesting and receiving these funds are called grant reimbursements. The subrecipient project director must follow a certain procedure to submit documentation via GEMS, the online Grants Enterprise Management System, to obtain reimbursement for project expenses. Reimbursement requests are reviewed by your grant manager to verify the expense. Once approved, reimbursement payments are provided on a set payment schedule. When discussing reimbursements, it's important to remember the principles of cost recognition for your grant. The Code of Federal Regulations, specifically 2 CFR 200 Subpart E, sets the cost principles used by the U.S. Department of Justice and the GCC. These principles govern the costs that may be charged to the government by subrecipients either directly or indirectly. The cost principles determine whether the costs incurred by subrecipients under federal law award are reasonable, necessary, and allocable. The principles are designed to ensure that the federal government covers its fair share of costs, except where restricted or prohibited by law. The cost principles do not attempt to prescribe the extent of cost sharing or matching on grants, contracts, or other agreements. When requesting a reimbursement, you must provide documentation that provides proof that the expense was incurred. This documentation is uploaded into GEMS along with your reimbursement request. The types of documentation vary on the types of expense. Some examples of required documentation include, for contractual expense, copies of approved contracts and timesheets. For equipment purchases, vendor quotes and invoices, photos of equipment, and proof of payment. For personal expenses, pay stubs, time, and activity tracking forms. For the purchase of supplies, vendor quotes and invoices, vendor debarment checks. For travel expenses, copies of travel itineraries, conference agendas, and receipts. Please note that this is not an exhaustive list of required documentation. Please review the GCC Guidelines book, the GCC website, or discuss with your grant manager to determine the exact documentation required for your specific project expenses. To begin the process of requesting a grant reimbursement, the project director will need to log into GEMS and navigate to the current project. From the menu on the left-hand side of GEMS, select Reimbursements tab. This screen will list any existing reimbursement requests that you have created. To start a new reimbursement request, click the green Add Reimbursement button at the top right corner. This will take you to the Create Reimbursement screen. The first step in creating a reimbursement is to identify the time period in which the costs were incurred. Typically, costs are incurred on a monthly basis. However, some equipment and supply purchases may be incurred over irregular time periods. Once you have entered your time period, select Save. This is the main screen of your reimbursement request. Note that the transaction ID is automatically populated. This is the ID number that will be referenced in any communications about your reimbursement request. The dates you enter in the prior screen are included as the period, which you can edit. As you build the reimbursement request, the total amount requested will be updated. The green Add Document button allows you to upload the required documentation for this reimbursement request. Once you select the Add Document button, you'll be prompted to upload a file. You can browse your computer to select the appropriate file. Please use document names that describe what is included in the document. Once you have selected the correct file, click Upload. After uploading files, you will be returned to the main Reimbursements Request screen. Note that you can delete documents using the Delete box beside each document. Now you will need to select which lines from your approved project budgets are being reimbursed in this request. To start this process, select the green Add Reimbursement Line button. Please keep in mind that it is important for your GEMS submission to match the reimbursement information provided on your expense cover sheet. Next, you'll be prompted to select which line item in your budget you are requesting reimbursement for. You can use the drop-down menu to only show one cost category. For example, if your budget has 6 lines for equipment purchases and 4 lines for supplies, selecting equipment will only show you the 6 equipment budget lines. Details for each budget line are included on the right side, including quantity, unit, cost, and total funds remaining for that line item. To select a budget line for reimbursement, click on the Select box on the left. Please note, if you do not see the budget line you're expecting, please check to see if any funds are remaining for that expense. Once you have selected a budget line for reimbursement, you'll be prompted to provide reimbursement details. These details include the name of employee, if personnel or contract expense type, quantities, and unit cost for this reimbursement. The document you have uploaded are listed on the screen, and you can select which documents are associated with this budget line reimbursement request. When you are done, select Save. After you've selected which budget line items are involved in this reimbursement request, you will be returned to the main reimbursement screen. Please review the information you have entered and double check your uploaded documents. Once you are satisfied with the request, you'll need to send it to your financial officer for approval. This ensures that 2 contacts at the subrecipient agency have reviewed the details of the reimbursement request. Once you select the blue Submit to Financial Officer button, an email will be sent to the financial officer to log into GEMS and approve the request. You have now reviewed the process to submit a reimbursement request in GEMS and may be wondering what happens next. Once your financial officer approves the request, your GCC grant manager will be notified that a reimbursement request is ready for GCC review. If your request was submitted on time, it will be reviewed within 10 calendar days. Please remember that reimbursement requests should be submitted within 30 days of incurring the expense in order to be considered on time. As your grant manager reviews your reimbursement, they may have questions for you. Please be available to discuss the details of your request. Your request may be returned to you if further documentation is required. If it is returned, you'll receive notification that modifications are required to your request. Once the required information is addressed, you will need to resubmit the request. Once your reimbursement request is approved, your project director will receive an automated message from GEMS. Congratulations on completing the LMS module on reimbursement requests. You now know when, why, and how reimbursement requests are submitted to GCC. You know the details of the cost principles of reimbursement and documentation requirements. You are prepared to submit a reimbursement request in GEMS, the Grant Enterprise Management tool. If you have any additional questions regarding reimbursements or policies around reimbursements, please feel free to contact your GCC Grants Manager. Their contact information can be found on the Project Overview section of GEMS. Congratulations! You may now proceed to the next module.